Everybody, good morning, good afternoon. Sorry for starting a little bit late, but because of the weather and the traffic, we postponed starting. And plus, it's so nice seeing everyone socialize and meeting each other and getting around. Everyone say hi to Bentley. I am Chris Rollins. This is my co-chair, Ceci Velasco. Thank you for coming to this month's Tourism and Hospitality meeting with the Miami Beach Chamber of Commerce. We are thrilled and thrilled beyond thrilled to be meeting in person. But yes, before we get started, listen, today opened with a very, very sad story and affecting our community. It is Surfside, but it's devastating what happened. If you haven't heard, there was a tragic building collapse. And our hearts go out to everyone, either related, family, friends. We pass it every day. It's absolutely devastatingly terrible. So Rolando Aido's here from the GMCVB. They're working on an emergency plan to help families that live there. I know all the emergency response team is working and pulled in so many resources to aid and assist. If anyone doesn't know the gentleman sitting right in front of me, Mayor Dan Gelber, he's right here. Thank you for coming, Mayor. No, I can't take away this mic. This mic is calling your name. Okay, we like to begin every one of our meetings with the reading of our mission statement. It's our purpose of why we continue doing this for so many years and the Chamber's goal. And Robin Jacobs. Everyone say hi to Robin. Aaron Tandy. If I miss anybody, please forgive me. It's just I'm getting around, I'm scanning the room. So anyways, let me get started. Yeah, as you can tell, I'm a hospitality guy. The mission of the Tourism Hospitality Council is, the mission of the Tourism Hospitality Council is to engage and be a resource for local companies in the travel and tourism industry and business supporting the industry to achieve success. The council will support chamber members by providing educational opportunities with industry leaders and keeping them apprised of trends and issues affecting the industry. That's what we try to do day in, day out. So without any further,
thank you,
Ceci Velasco. We have a very, very, very exciting meeting today. Can't even control me.
So yeah, Chris, don't go anywhere. So Chris and I have been doing this and we did it through COVID. So thank you all online because we're doing a hybrid Zoom. So we do have people that are listening on Zoom or on Zoom over here, right here on my phone. And for those of you who have been part and participated in the monthly meetings, thank you for staying with us through this very challenging year. This is our first in-person meeting, and we're thrilled to have the mayor. Both Chris and I are just giddy because it's our first in-person meeting. He came when there was other big important things going on with the convention center at the South Beach Group Women's Club. Remember, he came in person, and Bentley was also there at that meeting. We have usually our meetings, we have a full agenda. There's a lot of different things going on. We have a one topic meeting today because so impactful as to what is happening in our South Beach district, in our Ocean Drive area, in what is now called the Art Deco Cultural District. And the city, actually, I participated on the evaluation committee for this very important and bold program that the city, under forethought and great vision, reached out and put together an RFP to select an urban planner. And the urban planner that we ended up bringing on board not only was doing urban plan, but that the forethought to understand that it's not just Ocean Drive, it's not Collins, it's Washington, it's all the way over to the ocean. Also to understand that nothing operates in a vacuum. So transportation in the entire district will be affected. Landscaping of what should be one of the most beautiful parks in the world will be affected. Transportation, economic development, community building, all of those different programs. And I'm really proud that I was part of that evaluation committee. And I'm incredibly proud to assist and support the leadership that had the vision to know that if you're going to do something in a big and bold way, you have to invest to do it right. So just with that, setting that tone, we're really fortunate. This is the first kind of public opportunity that we're going to be able to hear from the consultant. They did make a presentation yesterday at the City Commission meeting, and we were waiting for that so the commissioners could be the first to kind of see the full presentation. I'm really pleased that we're able to present to you this today. And if we can have some words first from the mayor. Jonathan Pletzig is here, who's heading the Art Deco Cultural District panel with the mayor's office. He also chairs the Ocean Drive Association, the owner of the Betsy, and he happens to be a resident of Ocean Drive. Did I get them all in? Yeah, okay. And so we have a great opportunity. Yeah. And of course, Bernard Zyscovich is here. So we have a great opportunity to bring this to you, and I'm really excited about it. So Mayor, if you can please, and bring up these guys. You guys can all have a conversation and be part of it. This is a meeting. It's not like a big program or anything.
And then you're going to get Bernard and Jonathan are going to
yes.
say something.
Yeah,
okay.
Sure. Then Bernard kicks it up and he's got the
this is not my dog, but I like the dog. I like him. I have a new dog whose name we keep changing, which apparently isn't good to do to a puppy. We thought it was a Roxy, but now it's a Ninja, so we don't know. Hey, it's good to see you all. And by the way, thank you. We'll be thanking for a long time, I think, people in the hospitality industry. This pandemic has hit you all as acutely as any single industry. And I really am incredibly proud of the way our hotels, our restaurants, and those who service people who are coming here to visit. You all did an amazing job. Frankly, you're inventive and you weathered some very difficult times. So I just want to, on behalf of the city, we're very grateful. You were very good partners to work with all the time, not some of the time, all the time. So thank you to both the leadership and all of the many institutions. So, my background is not in urban planning. It's not in hospitality. I was a federal prosecutor. So if you get a subpoena from the Department of Justice, you can call me. But if you want to know how to treat somebody at a hotel, you need to call one of you all. Okay. I only say that because people in government, people who run for office, don't always have an expertise in the area that they have some impact on. But I have been a part of this city my whole life. It's the only hometown I've ever had. I'm 60 years old, and 60 years essentially have been in Miami Beach. And I've watched our city go through various incarnations. Really lots of, most of them were created organically. Some were good, some were not so good, frankly. And so for me, when I became mayor, we had some of these challenges were already existing in the South Beach area. Some would show up on 3-day weekends, some would show up in spring break. But what I really just wanted to do was create a process by which the ingenuity and sort of genius of our community could be harnessed in a way that would produce something that wouldn't just rely on good luck for the future. I wanted a committee that would work. I wanted people who were stakeholders with different voices who got along. And so, we created a couple different entities, but really what you're going to see here today was a result of first Jonathan Pletzig's, and we named it the Art Deco Cultural District for a few reasons. It's aspirational, frankly, because simply calling something an Art Deco Cultural District doesn't make it so. But we thought if we started with what we were hoping to create, that we would back into it. And getting Bernard and his efforts on board, which is what you're about to see, was very important. The committee's been working for about 6 months, I think. Although that doesn't mean they weren't working before that. A lot of people care, as you do, about this area. So for me, I'll just give you this overview. We're a very interesting city. We have 92,000 residents. On a weekend, on a Saturday night, we could have 300,000 visitors. And this happens all the time. And they're not just visitors. Sometimes they're coming here. Someone described spring break to me as a rite of passage for people. They said, your city's a rite of passage. And my response was, well, sometimes you don't want to be somebody else's rite of passage. But I get the fact that people like that. So to a certain extent, you've got the tension between our residents who have a right to live in homes and residences and not feel like their quality of life is deteriorated. We have an entertainment, hospitality. We have all these other industries that are here. We have a convention center that has its own sort of space. We have an incredibly expanding art and cultural profile, which frankly didn't exist when I was a kid. I always joke, I spent my part-time job in high school was an usher with the, I don't know if they're still around, Andy Frayne ushering service. You remember I had a hat, blue polyester suit, and I would take tickets at the convention center, mostly for professional wrestling or boxing, fiction or nonfiction. That was the art and culture of our community at the time. But obviously it's now home to Art Basel, and we've sort of developed a profile that's so deep and wide and year long that it's something we didn't have. So all these things are happening, and what's happened over the last year or two, and it seems like the pandemic put it on steroids, is that we have now a massive amount of people wanting to come here for lots of different reasons. We have residents who are really understandably upset about the massiveness of the group that are coming. I can't assume that it is a temporary thing simply because we were the only place open 6 months ago. I think people are discovering that this is one of the best places to go in the world, and more people are talking about it, and we're going to continue to see this kind of interest. So the question really is, what do we do with this area? How do we just let it organically grow in the way it has been? Because at the end of the day, the only response we have to that is huge volume of policing and a huge volume of arrests, because the disorder challenge of the area has become extremely compelling to us as a city. We arrest enormous amounts of people in this city. I've heard from a lot, you need more presence, you need more arrests, that's how you're going to maintain order. Of course, the challenge is every time you arrest somebody for an ordinance violation, of drinking or smoking or something, you take 3 or 4 cops out of commission, and then all of a sudden you have some streets that might not have patrols, and then all of a sudden things happen. Plus arrests themselves are very difficult. It's dangerous to cops, residents, and sometimes the arrestees, who are often high or drinking. So the dynamic of simply arresting ourselves out of this, policing is not going to work. So really what this purpose of this was to say, what is this community? What's the best version of this area for both the hospitality and for our residents? How does this going to work? And I think one of the things what I think we did is, I think years ago, we created an entertainment only district, not just an entertainment district, but an entertainment only district. And so we're hoping to create more of a mixed use area that has all the things we love about it, has the electrical aspects of it, in that it's an iconic, beautiful place to visit, and with great restaurants, venues, and hotels and places, but also that people can live because they aren't right now nearby. In the same 20 years that all this has been happening, South of Fifth became a neighborhood. Wasn't 20 or 30 years ago anything looking like what it is today. So all these challenges are happening, and we hope to do is put people who have different perspectives to put together a plan that we could imagine as a true Art Deco cultural district. And yesterday, I think we got the first, and you're going to show it, Bernard, in a moment, and you're going to go through it. Yeah, you're going to see what we saw yesterday, and we've seen it sort of come to fruition, but a very, I think, thoughtful template that elements of, or most of, could become what we're looking to create in the city. And I think we have to take action, because if we just simply let things happen the way they are, we're going to hit a peak, which we may have, and we're going to end up in a valley where we don't want to be. I think we have to take control of the development of this area. I put on stuff that are sticks, like 2 a.m. last call in some areas and things like that, and code enforcement, but I also am trying to put carrots out there. We have ordinances that would allow increased height on Collins Avenue and things like that to try to create some adaptive reuses for some of those properties, so they're not just smaller hotels, but maybe they're also offices, boutique offices, or other kinds of things. The point is that we've got to change this area and create incentives that create an Art Deco cultural district, because that's frankly what our city needs over there. So I believe that this is what we have to do. These are not changes that are going to have immediate impacts, I think, in the next few months, although we're talking about pedestrianizing right now and how Ocean Drive is going to look. But at the end of the day, these are things that we have to create a template that's thoughtful, that's long-term, that we can build around, and that people have a sense of what it is. And the process has been one where I think Jonathan's done a very good job, in a sense that the committee is as diverse a committee. It's got residents who are upset, it's got business owners who are upset, and it's got restaurateurs, it's got hoteliers, it's got government officials, it's got a lot of different folks. Most of them are upset, but they tend to get along at the meetings, which is most important. And they tend to share a vision that this place has to be better than what it's been right now, because the amount of activity has just been like, it's been too difficult to manage. And that's just the bottom line. It's right now, this area is too difficult to manage, and we've got to take care of that. So I'm very excited about this. I think some version of this is going to be what the city is going to seek to do as an overlay in the whole area. And I hope that we can do it faster. And I hope that despite the fact that there's change coming, that people embrace it. And frankly, because it came from the folks that are the stakeholders, not just residents, but a lot of the business owners. And I'll say this, you know, you can't, none of this is going to happen easily. It's not going to happen easily. There's going to be some disarray, some disorder, some dysfunction, because you can't take something that's operating at the level of activity South Beach is operating at and start to change things without there being some disorder. But we want to do it the right way, and we want to do it with you. I'm very grateful to the chamber. Robin and Jerry have been terrific at helping us. I don't think that this is one of these things where the government says this is what we're going to do and get in line, or we're not going to fight over this. I think there's a lot of common ground here. And frankly, most of the ideas that have come out of this probably have come out of people who are stakeholders in this area, who see that there's a way to imagine this as something that not only is as exciting and interesting as it currently is, but even better than that. So I'm very excited. With that, Jonathan, Bernard, are you guys going to do this? One of you got to get up, because I don't know how to work a PowerPoint. Okay. And by the way, I want to, I mean, Plutzik has been terrific. Really, I mean, I constantly am asking people to do things for the city, and Jonathan has never said no. And this isn't the only thing I've asked him to do. So I really am very grateful to Jonathan Plutzik for all the work he's done on this. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. And before he slips out, I do want to say it's this thing that we've undertaken, and I say we loosely, give all of us, obviously under mayor's leadership, is complicated. And every day all of us wake up saying, let's fix it tomorrow. Like, let's fix it tomorrow. Like, why not? Well, the reality is, to do the kinds of things that Bernard is going to take you through, actually, you need to pause, take a breath, actually have the discipline to, I'm not going to say ignore what's going on tonight, but you kind of have to block it out a little bit, be able to add this longer term vision, make a plan. Otherwise, we're just going to keep, you know, painting and repainting and sweeping and not actually transform this place that's become so different. The other thing that I would say is, I often say this, that this thing we have together, all of us, is so unbelievable that even we can't screw it up. And I mean that in the sense that we've been given this gift. And when I said on Ocean Drive, the ocean, Loomis Park, Ocean Drive, the architecture, and the mayor referenced this, you know, these cultural institutions, the Wolfsonian, the Bass, the New World Symphony, Miami Beach Urban Studios, Jewish Museum, all these things. We don't think of ourselves as being that brand, but we actually have all those things already. And before I give the microphone to Bernard, I'm going to come back a little bit later. You know, Bernard is often challenging us to deal with the fact that we are not in a very low place. Many communities that are going to go through what we're going through are saying, gee, how do we reinvent ourselves? How do we become someplace great? Well, it turns out Miami Beach is already great. And the challenge, which is in some respects a harder challenge, is how do you get greater from where we are? Because we've already got these hundreds and thousands of millions of people coming to visit us. It seems like we're robust and successful and so forth. And yet we know we have to change a lot. And going from, again, this place of greatness to someplace even greater actually imposes new challenges, different kinds of challenges on us. And that's what we've imposed on Bernard as an expert, because the rest of us, frankly, we may know how to run a hotel or run a great restaurant, but we're amateurs in this urban planning thing, which, by the way, doesn't mean we don't have strong opinions, because we do. But we leaned on Bernard as an expert, because it's really important not just to sort of exchange anecdotal views. You know, I got a bunch of great ideas, but I made them up. I didn't do what he does for a living. And I'm sure that's true of all of you. You got some great ideas too. Some of you may have expertise of one sort or another outside of hospitality. But we actually needed a guide to help us find the path, to give us enough information to actually make thoughtful judgments. And finally, you know, we think Miami Beach is unique, and it is in many respects, but in many respects, it's not. You know, people all over the world have wrestled with these kinds of issues in one form or another. Too many tourists, too few tourists, crime, homelessness, policing, whatever. And what's critically important for us is to understand what's unique about us, but also understand what lessons we can learn from elsewhere in the world. And one of the things Bernard's done for us, you're going to see in a moment, is help us look across the world and ask ourselves, what can we steal from other people? What can we learn from Bryant Park in New York? What can we learn from London in terms of traffic, et cetera, et cetera? Doesn't have to be invented here to be implemented and enhanced here. So I'm going to come back in a minute and turn to the microphone of the guy who's actually got knowledge, Bernard Zyscovich. Zyscovich.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for coming. I think I have this in my, I wanted to take a moment of kind of personal privilege, because this is something I haven't really shown to or talked to about with anyone else, but to what Jonathan was saying and what we've been talking about, the question that keeps coming up in my mind is, how do you recover when you're at the top? And I think Miami Beach is amazing. I also grew up here. It seems like there's a lot of people here that are involved in this process that actually have a lot of personal history and knowledge. And many years ago, when we were creating the CRA for the city, and I had the privilege of being on the team as architect for the Lowe's project, where we're sitting today, because we're also architects, we're all used to this the way it is, right? But what I want to remind everyone of is this is what it looked like before Lowe's. So this slide is, believe it or not, 16th Street. Now you might ask yourself, I don't see 16th Street. And the reason is there was no 16th Street. At the time that that project was going on, I also had been chairman of MDPL for a couple of years. And I was part of the creation of this CRA. And what I had to do was convince the preservation community that I was a part of that it would be worth it to move these buildings out of the way so that we could reconnect the city with this street. So that's what we did. And the reason that we won the project was because we had this idea that, now this is where you have to imagine. This slide, look at the St. Moritz, that white building. When we sent our staff into that building, I thought we were going to create a health hazard. There were no windows. It was total destruction. This property that is now one of the icons was in fact hopeless. Any other city would have torn it down. It was certainly condemned. Nobody lived there. So the point I'm trying to make is this is not the first time that we've been there. And this is why I keep saying we're kind of at the top, as Jonathan has also been saying. So our question is, we got to stop feeling sorry for ourselves about the condition of where we are. And we have to accept what I believe to be a very simple truth, which is in order to keep growing and increasing the quality of our lives, we have to transform this place. So there is no small idea that's going to fix this problem. So I wanted to lay that out because I really believe that it requires a community, like happened at this point, to believe in the fact that we can actually make change happen. And the day that Lowe's announced that they were going to come here and the money was coming into the city, that was a transformative moment. And since then, there has been nothing but uphill going on. So I believe that we have been working at trying to help everybody understand where we've been in this workshop category. And we've been going through a number of these workshops with the committee. We've had 12 meetings with the panel, more than 22 meetings with the city. At one point in time, we were looking at what we might choose to do with Ocean Drive as an interim pilot project. But in fact, there were no decisions made from that. We looked at, well, how could we have fun with Ocean Drive and maybe in the interim do an artwork on the sidewalk or maybe paint the street or do some things that help to change the way it works. And these were interim ideas that never really got any traction. And at the end of the day, there were no decisions made in that regard. But as we began to look at it, we said, well, let's put people first. And we need to have a shared vision. And the idea was that, as the mayor said, it made no sense to me to begin to think about dividing the city up by corridor, because I don't believe that Ocean Drive lives without Collins and Collins without Washington and all the other iterations. This is one place that's tied together. It is, in fact, the historic center of the city. And we need to look at them together. So it's about how do we want to shape that? This slide illustrates a street and all the different ways in which it can be configured, with cars, without cars, people only. I truly don't believe that's the issue. I think what we need to do is develop the vision and then back into what the answers are, not start out with what the answer is. So in that spirit, I want to take you through some additional insights. One is we heard a lot at the committee that we were in really bad shape. And of course, the press about Miami Beach also has been not that complimentary lately. And people are acting like the sky is falling. As I've mentioned, I don't believe that. I think we need to fix it, but we're not in terrible shape. And to prove that point, the area in blue with the bars is a valuation based on the MXE district and the hotel average daily rates and the valuation of the property. So in blue, you can see a rise that is now spiking in terms of value. The orange line shows you when, in fact, there have been moments of emphasis in purchasing and in the development of these things, which I call cycles. So the cycle goes up, the cycle goes down. This is not our first cycle. And we have to keep in mind as we face this challenge that we have the ability as a community to overcome that challenge. The line on the top is actually crime per 100,000 people in this area. And the reason it starts in whatever year that is, around 2000, is before then we didn't have data that differentiated this district from the rest of the city. And as you can see, that line has been steadily coming down. So the result is, even though this is a chart that no economist would want to own because it looks totally ridiculous, this shows you that crime is coming down, values are going up, and it's all in a linear aspect in terms of the time in which we're going. So this kind of proves that we're in good shape. The Lambert Advisory, who is the economist on our team, has come up with some obvious and important conclusions. One is there hasn't really been much in the development of new residential property in the city. So residents, of course, has high demand and will always continue to have high demand. What's happening is the office leasing is increasing significantly in terms of value. And there is an opportunity for the retrofit of buildings to become office, and not only in this district, but throughout the city. And as we can read in the papers, there's a lot of information about new tech companies and other international companies moving to the Miami area. And there's no question that Miami Beach can capture a lot of that. The other thing is the reality of our buildings. So we have a district that is defined, but the reality is that the condition of the buildings, except for obviously projects that have been incredibly improved, like Jonathan's Betsy and other properties, but by and large, we're still living with the way these buildings were laid out in 1930 to 1940. Because almost the entire Art Deco district, 800 buildings, were built between 1930 and 1940. Almost everything we see in this area was in that one decade. And most of those buildings have never changed their layout. So you go and you rent a room, and it's no wonder that those rooms are not being traded at a high value, and people are sharing rooms in order to make it even cheaper. So we have some built-in obsolescence in the properties that are now in their own right trying to make most of the money they can from the ground floor and making hardly any money from the upper floors. And this is a problem we need to fix. The other thing is, during the late 90s, there was a move of taking these buildings and condominiumizing them or creating fractional ownership, which means that the areas in dark orange are going to be more difficult than the areas that are not orange to rehabilitate, because it's going to require the vote of a condo association in order to make change. So we have our challenges built in, and we need to figure out how to develop incentives so that we can make these changes and have people actually take up the process of changing these things. So where are we now? Well, we've been talking a little bit about that. We have brands like Aman moving into the city. We have Faena. We've got international recognition. We have everyone in the world knows about Miami Beach, and yet we get press about twerking in the streets and all the other chaos that people see in terms of daily life. So that's where we are. We're both at the high end and at the low end in a mix that is confusing and hard to really predict. So we've developed these ideas as principles, fundamentally protecting the character of what we have, because that is in fact our identity. The historic architecture of the city is possibly the most important aspect of our visual identity for the world. That needs to be number one. We need to rebalance the way hotels, hospitality, and residents and all the other activities that are ongoing. We need to expand landscape and create better public space. And we need to have new transit and mobility ideas. We need to enhance the character of the street scene. And we need to manage how and in what way people arrive at this area. So our first thought, pretty much right away, was Loomis Park is also one of those things that's left over from the 1930s. And when you begin to look at the reality of this, the beach used to be here. I remember when I was a kid growing up, before beach renourishment, the beach was actually hardly at all there. And these buildings in this zone, the water came right up to this area. They were almost at the seawall. So what we have is we have an incredible expansion of beach, probably the most successful beach renourishment project in the entire country. A lot of them wash away. This one did not, and hopefully will not. but yet we still have the park. So if you imagine the water here, you had water and then sand to the beach. Well, that sand is now captive behind the dune because the dune was put in along with the beach. So our thinking is we calculated about 15 acres of existing green area in Loomis, but we also calculated another 15 acres in the hard packed sand that is between Ocean Drive and the dune. And why is that? We should just double the size of the park, redesign the park altogether, and make one of the most incredible waterfront parks anywhere in the world. And that is a very powerful idea and will all by itself go a long way toward transforming the image of this place. So we go from 15 acres to 30 acres. The other thought we have is that right now we have building, Ocean Drive, Loomis Park, the hard pack, the dune, the beach. We think we should start the park basically right at the edge of the sidewalk and have the park go all the way to the dune. So what does that mean? That means that this whole conversation about road or no road really isn't the right question. The right question is, if we start the park here, why not be able to have a road through a park that allows people to access the restaurant, to access a hotel, to be able to be dropped off? We don't have to envision this concept of road and park the way we're used to looking at it since the birth of the city. We can imagine it altogether differently. And there are plenty of examples of amazing parks, Central Park, where a road goes through the park and people somehow manage to cross the road. It's really not that big a deal. So we think that there's really a different way of looking at this altogether. And what that would allow us to do is to begin to start thinking about the park as different activity zones with different design features, with place for arts and culture to happen. We could have pavilions, we could have an amphitheater, we could have a splash pad, we could have whatever you can imagine could be there in the park. And I think by changing the park into a cultural asset, we change who comes to the park, which means we change who comes to Ocean Drive, which means as we develop improvements to the buildings, we now have a completely different demographic over time that is actually coming to this location. Here's a drawing that Raymond Jungle's office did of showing a kind of a meandering road through the green space that allows all the buildings to become part of the park and allows us to begin to think about a different way of seeing our own city, which I think is very exciting. So when we go to mobility, we still have the same problem. Everyone's going to say, well, we have so much congestion, we have so much traffic. Well, guess what? That's just never going to change. There is traffic all over the city, and we all know it's never going to change. But what we're thinking is, if we take this area in orange and we begin to think about it as a very limited access area, and I'll show you some examples, that still allows Flamingo Park to be the way it is. And the mobility and movement through the city, as we all know, if you're in a car and you want to go north, you're not going to come down to Ocean Drive to go north. You're going to take Alton Road, or you'll take Bay Road, or you'll do something else. So I think the reality is the western edge of the city is our movement, and the eastern edge of the city is our historic district, and we should think about them differently. So what we're considering is a different way of managing it. We're thinking that Washington Avenue becomes the transit corridor because when the monorail or the Metro mover ends up coming to Miami Beach, we think it should come all the way to Washington so that if you're taking transit to this area, you end up close to where you want to be. It's reasonable to assume if you're coming here, you're going to want to be close to the ocean. So let the transit come there. And then we're thinking, let's pick up a circulator on Collins and a transit connection on Washington. And then this becomes the loop. One way or another, there's a loop from transit to the convention center back to 5th Street. And that way we get a lot of people out of cars and we put them in transit that works. And that whole idea begins to make sense. So that means Fifth Street. This is a drawing of Fifth Street. And here's Washington, Collins, and Ocean. Look at all the lanes of movement that then eventually takes you to Ocean Drive where you have one lane. There's no question about why it's congested and why it's hard to get around and why people end up cruising. This was like almost designed for cruising. You could be right in front of the buildings. You could have your friends. You could be listening to music. You can go up and down. It's entertainment. Of course, if you're 18 years old or whatever age you might be, it's going to be a lot of fun. What we're thinking is, let's restrict the movement. And we're going to show you how in a moment. In our mind, everything east of Washington now becomes restricted. So what we're proposing is let the Metro Mover or monorail come into the center. Let there be a single lane of movement that takes you in and out of this entire district, all the way from 5th to 15th. And then we want to charge you for it. So here it is on 5th right now. And if there is an overhead rail of any type, it will come in something like that. This shows you the circulator trolley that will go up and down. This shows you where you get picked up. And then you can have a single lane of traffic that accesses. But once you cross Washington, you end up with a congestion charge, which we're going to show you in a minute. Here's Washington, the way it was pre-pandemic. And here it is with a transit connection, because the bus used to be there, and it means it will be back there, either a bus or a light rail or whatever is determined. It needs to travel in its own lane. Otherwise, it's going to be stuck in traffic. So we're really saying, let's rethink this entire district. And London went through the same thing. And what London has and Milan has, and even New York City, you may not realize it, but when you take shared ride or a taxi, you get charged a congestion charge as part of your fee. This is called a congestion charge. And what that means, if I'm 18 years old and I want to cruise Ocean Drive, once I pass that point, just like SunPass, it's going to read my license plate and it's going to cost me a lot of money. And if I'm getting dropped off in an Uber, I'm going to have a charge in addition to my fare that allows me to get dropped off in an Uber. And if I'm a resident, I get to go there for free. But we need to have a way so that we can restrict access. And this is something I believe we could start to put into play very soon. We need a legal review. We need a process, but basically it's very simple. It's video cameras that read your license plate. And as soon as you get read, you're in the system, and there is a charge, just like if you were to go across Rickenbacker or the HOV lane or anywhere else in the city. So it's really, we're not inventing anything. We're just changing the way it works. So once we have a new park and we rethink how the streets are designed, and we have congestion charging or some way of restricting traffic, now we can start focusing on how people move by foot and by bike through this historic district, because now we suddenly have a lot more real estate in the street to play with. So our thinking is, let's the park, and we don't have a drawing, but we're taking an example. This is Barcelona. There's the building. There's the sidewalk in front of the buildings. Imagine this to be Ocean Drive. Imagine this to be the sidewalk. See how the trees are placed? We're thinking, let the park start where the street is and let the park continue. And then we can simply have a road through the park that could meander. We also have been looking at what the city is calling pedestrianization, which means keep it closed. We see a lot of issues with keeping it closed in terms of the change or the transformation in the quality that we want to bring to this district. So if you're going to be having a better room and people are going to spend millions of dollars to upgrade their building, do we really want them stopping on the 100 block and trying to figure out how to get to the front of the hotel? Or dress up for a night out and walk in high heels. And, there's just so many issues, the loading, the ADA access, that it seems to me that we need to provide some way of providing access. But the idea that we can increase the pedestrian flow throughout the entire district, Collins and Ocean, from 5th to 15th, that more than makes up for the fact that you're going to see some cars in the street. So on Collins, which is now 2 lanes plus a turn lane plus 2 parking lanes, we're envisioning that as a shared street where everybody is moving very slowly. That's where the circulator goes. So I can take the train to Miami Beach, I can get on a circulator, and I can get off anywhere 1 block from the ocean or 1 block from Washington. The whole thing is like set up for simple, easy movement, very different than the bus or the light rail, which is about moving distances in Miami. This is about moving 15 blocks and then coming back to the same spot. So that's the idea here. And then on the side streets, this shows you today that we have parked cars, a lane in each direction. But if we are actually going to be slowing down all the streets and creating a congestion charge, what we're thinking is you would get your plate read here, and then we're thinking, we haven't gone through traffic analysis, but we're thinking we would take each of these side streets and make them one way, either one way east and then one way west. That means we open up the area that is available to us of a parking lane and a travel lane. All of that area now gets reconfigured into bike lanes, wider sidewalks, and landscaping. So we could take each of the side streets and also make them more pedestrian and more friendly. And we could literally change the image of this entire district without touching any historic facades. And it would be a major transformation. And we're looking also at how to reconfigure alleys and other things. So far we've gone through that, but how do we get people to do that? Well, the best tool is land use and zoning as incentives. We did the Washington Avenue study with the city, and since we finished that blue ribbon panel, there's now new hotels, buildings are getting renovated, there's a transformation going on Washington, and that's the direct result of zoning incentive. Believe me, that's the only reason it's happening. So we think that we could do something similar in the district. One is we are very fascinated by the CRA, which actually we helped create 25 years ago. And we think there's an overlap. So we think that some of the funding of the CRA could go into helping the northern edges. We could think about some rezoning analysis, but more importantly, we could think about something like we did on Washington, where we allow the back of the building to get higher, and therefore we have a condition. If you're going to be able to add square feet, you're going to have to renovate your entire building. Otherwise, there is no building permit. So we're thinking we could reorient how everything is designed without impacting the front of the building. We could, my battery is running low. Can somebody help me with that? Thank you. So next, so if we're looking at 2 or 3 buildings together, because I'm not sure this works for one building, we haven't studied that. One thing we get is we get the use of the roof terrace, and we get additions to the back of the building. So we could begin to utilize more of the property, and that will create an economic incentive. The average daily room night for a much better hotel will go up, which means the people coming to use those hotels will evolve. And the roof terrace would be only for the use of the hotel guest. And we can legislate all those criteria in a way that would enable people to be sure that we're not going to end up with a monster as a result. The same is true on Ocean Drive. We might be able to add some area that would not be visible from the street. So we're looking at how much and how high. And basically, we have a list of things that we can do through land use and zoning that ultimately result in development incentives. And with the economic incentive, now we have the private sector doing improvements at the same time that the public sector is changing the streets. That's a bold vision, and we think that that's something we can do. Now, that leads to the last item, which is how do we manage all of that? And what we're thinking is, because we have an excellent consultant on our team, that we would be able to leverage the public sector management, but carve out private management for the park and for the streetscapes and for all of that. So that we would basically set up a conservancy like they did in Bryant Park. Bryant Park, I mean, I'm in New York a lot. I have an office in New York. I love New York. It's in my DNA. I went to school in New York. So I spent a lot of time in the city, and I remember Bryant Park before it was renovated. It was a hellhole, to be complimentary. It was really a total disaster, full of crime, full of drugs. Nobody ever wanted to go there. And after the conservancy, everything changed, because now there are people who are paid to be there full time. They clean things up. They don't allow crime to happen. They started programming events that were like Fashion Week and things that changed the nature of the whole thing. And if we have a conservancy, we can end up with Loomis Park, which is not a hellhole. It's beautiful, but it's nothing like what it could be. Imagine South Point Park. We all know that after the renovation versus before. I know I go to South Point Park all the time, and this idea that this concept is for visitors and where's the benefit to residents? Well, I feel there's a huge benefit to residents in an incredible new park. And there's a huge benefit to residents in more landscaping in the streets. So I don't believe that this is an either or. I think it's a both and. These ideas, I believe, are better for everyone. And our thinking is that with being smart about how we manage, we could actually create also this entire district. Orange initially, that's Loomis and Ocean, and then eventually the lighter orange. Why? Because why do we have all these different vendors that do the same thing, like pick up garbage or deliver food or whatever? If we had a single entity managing garbage pickup and street cleaning and changing of lights and making sure the landscaping is pruned and all these things, we basically have an outgrowth of city service that's not actually the taxpayer, it's the private entity, because as this becomes higher quality and better utilized, whatever happens in the park is supporting in the entire district. That's what happened at Bryant Park, because in Bryant Park, there was $250,000 a year paid for by the city to support Bryant Park. Not a whole lot of money because nobody really went there because nobody wanted to. And after the renovations and the new activities and the creation of a conservancy, now there's a $25 million budget, and people are willing to pay big bucks to have something happen at Bryant Park. We think the same thing would happen with Loomis if we did it in the same way. So we believe that if we set this up correctly, the cost of maintaining this entire district could shift toward more of a private sector conservancy. And at the end of the day, we still protect the postcard image, but we have a totally transformed district. So this is what we've been doing this time. Jonathan has been an amazing leader. John Stewart and Tom Donnelly are not allowed to talk to each other because they're on the committee, but they're in the room. I want to acknowledge them. I also would like to acknowledge Darius Avila from my firm, raise your hand, who has been our project director and has really devoted days and nights to preparing this. So this is where we're at. We're not done, but these are the formative ideas that will now be evolving. And we're hoping that we can move forward with this with all great speed, because this has been characterized as the long-term plan. But as I think about this more, I think that what we really need to focus on is to begin the design and the development of this as the short-term plan. Now, we know it's going to take years to get to the vision, but we do believe congestion charging, the design of Loomis Park, the reorientation of streets, so many of the land use and the zoning incentives, those are all things that we could start working on, because they're not going to happen overnight. Just getting everything set up would probably take at least a year, and we don't see why we shouldn't move into that right away, because we'll be advancing our own future by multiples of years versus waiting for the short-term period to end and then start working on this bigger vision. So with that, I thank you for your attention, and should we take questions?
Yeah, Jonathan, if you'll wrap up a little bit,
just
and
one-
we do have an opportunity for questions.
Just a couple quick comments. One, I want to acknowledge Robin Jacobs in the back too, who's also on the committee. Yeah, we can't talk to each other, but I do want to say a couple quick things. One is Bernard has done magnificent work, but I want to also note that he's done it a lot faster than he originally planned, because we kept saying faster, faster, Bernard, and extraordinary stuff in a very short period of time. Another quick point is really working hard to change the narrative, this kind of us against them, residents against businesses versus this. The reality is we're all in this together. And I think, as Bernard pointed out, I mean, look at Bryant Park. And frankly, most conservancy related operations, they're really for the neighbors. And it turns out that tourists kind of discover them and say, they're really excited to be there because residents are there as well. So again, it's changing the narrative, is an understanding that this really is about community, and it's about residents as well as the business operations. We're in a lot of conversations where people say, oh my God, over my dead body, are we going to do X or Y or Z? And we've somehow got to get past that to actually make some progress. I do want to say that we need to attach urgency. Bernard's last comments about that. How do we make progress? Yeah, this is a decade-long adventure, but how do we make progress in the next 12 months, 18 months, 2 years? By the way, one of the great things about Loomis Park, which, just repeating Bernard's comment, really should be, is potentially one of the great urban parks in the world, period. Short list of just a handful, and frankly, half of it at the moment is empty. So if you think about making progress, we're not displacing anybody to get to work on that. It requires thoughtful planning, et cetera, but we can get at it. Pilots are really important. You know, we're going to try some stuff and learn. You know, one of the interesting things about these conversations, people say, I'm certain the answer is X. Well, trust me, Bernard knows better than the rest of us, but even Bernard would say all kinds of unintended consequences. You got to try things, you got to modify things, you got to tweak things. So we have to get after that, and we have to be not afraid of that. That's particularly true on Ocean Drive at the moment, where we're talking about trying some things. But I want to maybe conclude before we take questions. We're often leading these conversations by first talking about doubling the size of Loomis Park, because that makes people kind of get happy. And people who are concerned about too much business or too much activity, the idea of doubling green space is very comforting. And secondly, even as we talk about zoning changes and incentives and FAR, no one's talking about compromising the architectural integrity of those facades. Those are sacrosanct, not happening, but we need to think creatively about what happens behind them. And that's going to require people to take a little bit of a leap, that change is possible, even in the context of preservation. And with that, I'm going to step aside because I'm sure most of the questions.
If you could stay up here, because we are going to have questions and answers, but we're so fortunate today to have Rolando Aido from the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. And I want you to come up to the podium, please, so that the people on Zoom can listen as well. This transformation and community, it's big when it comes to visitors and conventioneers. It's about community and being part of something. So I wanted to just hear from you, what do you think this impact will have on the greater scope of where we are in Miami and the world?
Sure, thank you, Ceci, and congrats to the Chamber and the leadership for facilitating this discussion. You know, I too have a strong personal connection to all things Ocean Drive. Grew up like many of you in the community. My grandparents stayed a long time on those porches along the beautiful buildings back in the day. Couldn't afford to do that now, God rest their souls, but that's okay. So this is a big part of my personal journey. And I will tell you, just to build on Jonathan's point about doubling park space, we all know now more than ever in this post-pandemic world that anything that resonates with outdoor spaces, parks in particular, has been a huge driver for the recovery of our business. So that is manna from heaven, independent of the fact that there is no other park in the world that's got this postcard background. And Ocean Drive always has been and will always be our top attraction in the broadest sense of the word. And when you look at that ADCD, we've had an Art Deco district for quite some time. It's part of the National Historic Register, but dropping that C in there, which stands for culture. And of course, many, and Jonathan in particular, has really injected an amazing, amazing, special cultural moment and experiences. And that's what people want. They want the package. They want the amazing park space. They want the Ocean Drive. They want that history, that backdrop. And of course, culture, which has really defined the evolution of our community, Miami Beach. And quite frankly, also generates a lot of revenue, high value business. So for us, product development in its broadest sense, destination development is something that we're committed to. We're working with the city on not just marketing the city, but being invested in the branding process. And this lines up beautifully for the evolution of that Miami Beach brand. So we are over the moon. Like Bernard, we can't wait. Let's get it done with your input, with your feedback. But this is a hell of a start. So thank you, Bernard, which I think we're neighbors, if I'm not mistaken. And by the way, Bernard has other plans for other parts of the community that are equally spectacular. He is one of our local treasures. So thank you. And thank you, Jonathan, for your leadership.
Thank you, Orlando. This is kind of a little bit under the radar meeting in that we waited until we had permission from the city. Bernard has a direct contract directly with the city. So we do have the city manager's blessing to have this today. Rolando, thank you. So I know you dropped everything to be here today. It's important, and it's important to have you here. And I want to thank you for that. And this is a dialogue. This is an opportunity for people in the industry to give Bernard, Jonathan feedback. So does anybody have any comments or questions? Yes. For the Zoom, I'll have you speak into the microphone, okay?
First and foremost, I want to say I'm blown away by this. I didn't get a chance to see the whole thing at the commission meeting yesterday, but my hat off to you, Bernardo, and your team. It's phenomenal. And I just want to say that I'm hopeful that the city will take it on and do whatever it needs to do, because this is a long-term vision that needs to start immediately. And I see this as an amazing solution and a legacy project. We talked about legacy projects yesterday with the Sabrina Cohen Beach. We're doing amazing things in this city. And I believe we are on the world stage with these types of ideas, and we need to make it happen. Push it forward, make it happen. We need more engagement from our business community. I'm so happy to see so many of my colleagues here today, and I know there's a lot on Zoom. We have to be engaged. The residents have a voice. We as a business must have a voice. This is important for us. It's important for residents, but as business owners, we must get engaged. We must pay attention to what's going on in our city commission. We must pay attention to what's going on in our finance committee, our planning, our zoning. We need to know what's going on so we can have input. Jonathan, your leadership is phenomenal. Thank you for always being at the forefront with such intelligence, creativity. We need to support you. We need to support these ideas. It's for all of our benefit. It will benefit all of us. Thank you. Thank you, Ceci and Chris. This is amazing. Thank you.
I guess that wasn't that much of a question other than a rally for support. I'm gonna, oh, good.
Hello, Yannick Jones from the Jones Company. This was absolutely incredible, this presentation. Mr. Bernardo, you are a visionary to say the least. I guess my comment question is more or less, as we continue to beautify the city that we all enjoy, the world also enjoys this place. And I know we want to not keep Miami Beach in the ghetto, because right now it has a somewhat a ghetto perspective from those who are outside looking in, and we all know that that's not the case. But how do we still continue to be inclusive so that those people who I don't want to call them the less fortunate, but they may not make as much money as all of us sitting in this room, how do they continue to participate in this manner when this is developed and not feel like, oh, I can't go to the beach because they've built some monstrosity thing there that's not inclusive for me. So, you know, as we develop the park, how does it represent every country? How does it represent every culture, creed, you know, throughout the life of what we're looking at here? That's my question.
Thank you.
Yeah, really we appreciate you asking the question. I must say we begin almost every meeting of our committee by saying Miami Beach welcomes everybody, period. Okay, we are blessed to have an incredible beach that I'm going to say is free. It doesn't mean it doesn't cost something to get there, or if you want to rent a chair, it's going to cost you a few bucks, but the beach is a free asset that's not changing. Similarly, you know, we're planning, we hope to invest a lot of money in the park, but the park is free. And by the way, we're also blessed to have a city that actually has a lot of eating options, some of which are tremendously expensive. All the great chefs of the world are here, but also ones that are more modest. So, you know, obviously we're at a moment where people are very tense about law enforcement and sort of quality of life. And let's be clear, this is an issue, and again, I defer to an expert much greater than me, to put it mildly, that, you know, as you make enhancements in a community, people often attach the word gentrification to it, that it creates tension. I mean, naturally, Amman has announced they're building a hotel. The Bulgaria has announced they're building a hotel. The Raleigh is being renovated. The Delano, those are going to be expensive places. But I think in the context of doing that, we are fully capable of preserving this sense of openness and welcoming to everybody who wants to come here and abide by the law and behave appropriately. The community is open, full stop. And by the way, we are completely intolerant of a conversation that says anything other than that, period.
I'm going to come to you, Seth.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, guys. This is really awesome, inspiring. The world is your oyster, and you guys are creating something new for Miami Beach. And this is just like ground zero of criticalness for the one big issue we have right now. My name is Seth Fewer. At the Chamber, I am the chair of the Pillar Board. In real life, I work for Compass. I'm a realtor. I sell luxury real estate. I'm also the chairperson for the City of Miami Beach Police Citizens Relations Committee. So there's a lot of different hats, and I represent a lot of different things. You guys said we're all in it together. We are. I see Miami Beach as a tale of two cities. I have clients coming in that are dropping millions and millions and millions of dollars on houses. And the conversation that I hear frequently from them is it safe to be here? They hear this conversation of what's happening in the entertainment district and they get scared. And what I say back to them is that, you know, it's an amazing area. We have issues from time to time there. And it's something that we're actively working on. And in the meantime, how easy is it for you to get a dinner reservation? Because the restaurants that they're going to, they're sold out month, 2 months in advance. So as you said, we have the best and the worst at the same time. And I'm not organized with what I'm saying. I'm just going to just tell you my thoughts. The city, we live in really one of the most amazing cities in the world. And when you look at everything that's happening around us, what you guys just touched upon with the Mon coming, with the Bulgaria, excuse me. When you look at what's happening with the park on 5th, 5 Park, the Miami Beach Canopy, the Baywalk on Miami Beach soon enough, the new park, Bayshore Park, I believe it's called, just north of the high school. If you can that Tolerance Center, if you can fast forward in your mind what we're going to be in 5 years, spectacular. But we have some very heavy lifting to do, and we're behind you 100%. With respect to me and being the chair of the Pillar Board and the Police Citizens Relations Committee, it is critical that we engage the business community to help lift us out of this. We're in a dance. We have to get in this together. And two key groups of people that we've got to get on board with us. Number one are the residents. we need them to help us. We need them to go here. We need to create things that they want to come to. So that's really critical. And the second part is we've got to embrace preservation in the past and all this other great stuff, but in a smart way. Right now, it's stopping us from moving forward. We've got to crack that nut. It's just critical. So anyway, with the Police Citizens Relations Committee, we're trying to work together to engage the business community. And anyway, those are my random thoughts. Guys, thank you. This is incredible. And good luck. Anything I can do to help, I'm here for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Thanks, been a big champion. I know that there's a couple people, but I'm going to come here to coach Kevin because we're talking about parks and we're talking about expanding the park. And I know you're all about wellness in the outdoors. So I want your thoughts on this, please.
I appreciate that, Kevin Kruger. And I feel like I'm resounding a lot of the phrases that have come from this side of the room and over here. This is a tale of two cities. You took the words right out of my mouth. So I'm a commercial real estate broker, different than Seth, but I serve office, industrial, and some warehouse. And this is all a real estate play, right? So one of the things that attracts me in living here is that we have these natural resources. This is a beautiful redesign of a city that could be deemed the fittest capital of the world. So we could all walk to work, bike to work, skateboard, however you get around town. Some of you guys have seen me in my suit skating to meetings. But I want to ask, part of the culture in ADCD, is it sports and fitness? Is that identified? Because what is the culture here? Is it just architecture? Is it just arts? Is it just drinking? The generation below us, well, younger than us, the Gen Zs, are starting to migrate away from $35 cocktail bait and switches to yoga. They get their high through things like yoga and meditation. And that's been here for at least a decade or so. The culture that I see when you look back at Miami Beach and those postcards, you see divers and synchronized swimmers at the Delano. There's a rich infrastructure that's here. It's already ingrained. So culture, I think, could be sports, fitness, health, wellness. The South Beach diet was famous 25 years ago from, I think, Dr. Atkins, and is then morphed into vodka sodas with the models. That's a joke. But just keeping that in mind. And, just I think that we need to be cognizant of what culture is. And we all in this room can help identify that beyond arts, beyond music, beyond food, beyond drinks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
Sure. Well, the only that's right on. I think one comment I'd make is, Bernard has drawn this beautiful picture of the doubling of Loomis Park as an example. I think one of the most interesting challenges will be to figure out how to program the park. Right. And it's something about which there'll be a big debate. People want this and they want that. And by the way, I don't want the playground near me. I don't want it away from me. I mean, all those conversations will take place. I think there'll be an opportunity for the community, frankly, in all its variations, to really engage on that topic. But I can't imagine a future Loomis Park that's actually not more fitness involved than it is today. 15 more acres. How can we go wrong?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ceci. Good afternoon, Gloria Fonseca. I am the owner of Fonse's LLC. We are an SBE certified firm, and I am very glad to be here because it's amazing and the way the Miami Beach Chambers of Commerce and the city works together. And I want just to ask you guys to remember whenever you develop any project, to maintain and to make sure that there are goals for small businesses, especially for those that are minorities. We always advocate for women-owned business and also for Black-owned business because we are the two sectors that have less opportunities, but it's very, very amazing, the project and the vision. Thank you very much.
It's very important. Thank you so much. Ray.
Good afternoon. My name is Ray Linus. I'm the owner of World Class Parking. I've been in business for the last 9 years on my own, and seeing the growth of Miami Beach, this is amazing. Thank you for your vision as well. But my question would be more towards the parking and the transportation part of it, because I've seen there's been some new garages being built. I'm not sure if that's a private and public joint venture, but if there's going to be more parking for vehicles that will be coming into the city, because obviously there's going to be more opportunities to bring in more tourists to the area, but also for future air mobility. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of that. If you guys are planning to look into that as well. If not, we'll be happy to have a conversation as well towards that.
You know, there's hardly a project without a conversation about parking. And I think that parking is critically important. But sometimes there really isn't an easy answer. When I mentioned earlier about 800 buildings built between 1930 and 1940, which created this entire South Beach district, it's very rare to see a vacant lot. And there's been money put into the parking fund for many years, and it's really hard to find a place to put the money because it's very hard to find additional parking. So our take is between Washington Avenue West, we need to find places where people can come to a parking structure, find a way to get out of their car, and then walk or take the circulator to go actually to the Art Deco Cultural District. This idea of bringing all these cars into the Cultural District to park is part of the problem. And it creates a tremendous amount of congestion on the streets because these garages are not designed to flow. They're just conventional garages. So it's a deep conversation that we need to have, and we need to start to think about how do we begin to transform all of this. Now, you know, we've had the honor and the privilege in the firm of working with Facebook in Silicon Valley over the last 4 years. And it's put us into the center of all this new technology. And we've been working with very high level companies that do transportation planning. So the autonomous car, which some people thought would be out now, is still not. But it's fair to say that in the upcoming years, there will be alternative solutions. And those solutions will change. We're not making a place for the next 5 years. We're transforming this, hopefully, for at least several decades. And what I'm getting at is we have mobility that needs to change. We've got the technology of moving around that's changing. We've got, and we have both spectrums at the same time. At the same time as we're talking about autonomous vehicles and very high tech answers, we also have a resurgence in the interest in the bike lanes and in people on little scooters. And we have both of these things happening at the same time. So I don't have an answer for you, but I acknowledge that it's an issue we need to deal with, and it will be the outcome of this change. So if this thing happens, you're absolutely right. There will be less parking available, and we have to figure out what are we going to do about that.
I have another question over here.
Just one really quick comment. Bernard spoke about how he envisioned Loomis Park beginning at the facade of the Art Deco buildings on Ocean Drive. And the slides went rapidly, but actually if you close your eyes and listen to Bernard also, it's possible that Loomis Park can almost begin at Washington Avenue, meaning so people parking on the other side of Washington will feel like they've entered as soon as they get to Washington, which will transform people's view about where they need to park or where they need to be. They don't need to get to Ocean Drive to experience it from a car point of view. I think it's hugely important as well.
You know,
Please.
that's why we love working with Jonathan, because he enhances the vision. You're absolutely right. It should start at the east edge of Washington, and now you feel like you're in a garden environment that is surrounded by all this great activities and architecture and culture and fitness. And that is really our intention. You know, we've been talking about it as Ocean Drive, but intuitively, the reason that we held out for being able to look at the whole district is because of that. This is the answer. So we're totally into that.
Okay, another question.
Yeah, hi, my name is Martha, and I was just wondering, it's beautiful, the future plans and everything, but I'm just wondering, as a taxpayer, how is it gonna affect not only homeowners, small businesses? I mean, our taxes, you know, obviously pay for a lot of this. I was just wondering what the view of it, you know, how is it going to affect all of us?
Well, first,
That's interesting. And I know there's a multiple different answers to that.
yeah, and first, let's be honest, we don't know precisely standing here today, so we need to be frank about that. Having said that, first, doing this correctly unlocks a tremendous amount of value in our community, meaning everything we have will be worth more, and that in and of itself is an important step in the community. It was interesting to look at the slide about Bryant Park. Again, got to a place that we would all embrace, and the contribution of the city of New York, meaning the taxpayers of New York, went from 250 to 0, and the budget went from 250 to 25 million. Because what happens is the businesses get engaged and are imposed upon to make contributions. Frankly, many of the issues we're wrestling with today that cause visitors not to want to be here, obviously reduce tax revenues as well. So I can imagine a combination of things that actually will contribute to the financing of this that actually are taxpayer neutral or taxpayer beneficial. One of the things the city also did, I think in a far-sighted way, of course, is the GO bond program, you know, a $500 million program to do various capital improvements. Now, 20 million of that is dedicated to Ocean Drive, the street, not the businesses, the street, 5 million to Loomis Park. By the way, 25 million sounds like a lot, but it's not enough to do what we want to do here. But it's a great start to know that we have that in our pocket. And other funds also for Washington Avenue. So the city is anticipated in some respect, but there's a ton of work to do to actually answer your question precisely. But I come away at this moment saying, this isn't something to be paying attention to and to be asking questions about, but not to be afraid of, because we'll get to a much better place. And I believe much of it will pay for itself by the business and energy it creates.
So I'm going to close the meeting, but do you have another comment before we close your presentation and then we'll go?
We're done.
Okay.
Good. Thank you all.
So we are going to close the meeting. What a wonderful presentation. And we have so many people in this room. Every single person here is relevant to the industry. I'm so grateful that you are spending your time. We did run a little bit longer. Unfortunately, we had such a tragic occurrence happen in our community this morning. Thank you for persisting and being here. We really are sending heartfelt, just thoughts and prayers for everybody that has been either in the buildings, all of our first line responders, all of the people that are trying to help find homes for the people who are displaced. I know Rolando and Wendy Calerges are working really hard at that, and everybody that's been impacted, but it has hurt our community. And I think we're gonna, hear a little bit more about that, but it's tragic. It's really tragic.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Listen, I saw a lot of new faces and new chamber members here this morning. So thank you for joining. Big shout out to Mutlu here at the Lowe's for putting this together. He's not here, but we got to say thank you to him. And everyone have a wonderful
Encore. Thank you so much, George in the back. Encore AV. Listen, they contributed and sponsored to this. There is a reason we are at the Lowe's. This is the northern point of the Art Deco Cultural District. Mutlu felt very, very strongly about being and participating, the GM, and having this particular session here, because he's very much aware that he's at the northern point of the district, and the district is going to affect the Lowe's, which is one of the biggest hotels in this area. So we're grateful to him. Unfortunately, he's not here today.
It affects our entire city.
It does.
It really does.
I do want to thank Robin, who is the current chamber chairman of the board, for being here today. Wayne Pathman, who's the former chairman of the board. Aaron Tandy was here, who is the incoming chairman of the board. Deanne, thank you so much, a former chairman of this council. Everybody here, thank you so much for being with us today.
I would have a great
Sad.
day.